Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're going to be discussing the 11th and penultimate round of the Cyclocross World Cup in Maasmechelen, and with me here to do that is Issam.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Very different conditions around the mining site, former mining site I should say, of Maasmechelen this year. Last year it was quite the mud fest. Not thick mud, but definitely one that got everyone dirty. But this year, like almost all of the races, it was dry, it was fast, but that didn't mean that the race was not interesting. Already the men's race had a chaotic start. At the end of the start straight, Johan Viseur seemed to unclip from his pedal and crash. He was in quite bad state. He was on the start-finish straight for a number of laps. I believe it took them 3 laps to get him away. He kept losing consciousness, didn't know where he was, had pain in the arm. He has since undergone examinations in the hospital. They say he is fine and that he will most likely be able to race the World Championships, which really seems like a miracle if you saw that and heard that. But it caused some chaos because that was quite far at the front. Some riders were held up. Pim Ronnaar was one of the riders to go down over him. Then in the first corner up the little bump there was another crash. So there was a lot going on, and in that Cameron Mason shot off at the front. Tibor Del Grosso didn't seem too eager. I wouldn't go as far as say as he was blocking, but he certainly didn't seem to be interested in following Mason. However, there was of course Kevin Kuhn, the Swiss champion, who else also eager to defend his title of first lap merchant. He shot off, caught Mason, but Mason kept going in the second lap until he got a flat tire and was set back. Then Vanderpool took over. He took over just after Thibaut Nys, who had been leading, crashed. It seemed to be game over at that point, 20 minutes into the race. Vanderpool riding away, Del Grosso briefly on the wheel but then gapped. Then Vanderpool punctured the first time, just after the pit zone. He needed to ride over half a lap on a flat tire, flat front tire, and he came back into the pits 23 seconds behind race leader Del Grosso. Christophe Roodhoofd said there was no way that Van der Poel was going to come back, but of course he did. In one lap he caught back up to the group for second place, and not much later Del Grosso was also caught and the race could start again. After that puncture, Van der Poel didn't want to waste too much time. He quickly took the lead, rode away until he had another puncture. That was another kind of final lifeline thrown to the group for second, where Nys was dealing with the Alpecin duo of Del Grosso and Van de Putte. Nys made an attempt to come across, didn't work out for him in the penultimate lap. From there, Van der Poel just set off, went on to take the win, cruised in the final half lap of the race. Let the others come quite close, but never really in any danger following those 2 punctures. He took his 50th World Cup win, equaling the record of Sven Nys. He can become lone record holder tomorrow, although we should note that there are more World Cups in a season now than when Sven Nys was racing. So it's always a little bit apples and oranges, but whatever. It's a milestone for him. He's nearing on 300 career wins. His win at the World Championship could potentially be his 300th win. There were some reports that this was already his 300th win, but that is incorrect. Those 2 wins he took in Waregem do not count. Those were not UCI official races. For second place, then, we had a battle. It seemed first to be between Del Grosso and Nys. Del Grosso and Nys went side by side in the corners before the sand pit. Ultimately, Del Grosso rode through the sand better. Nys was knocked out of position and then had nothing left in the tank. Saw Van de Putte come by. It was a full sweep of the podium as Del Grosso just fended off Van de Putte in the sprint for second place. A good day for Alpecin. Maybe this could cheer up the mood of Christophe Roodhoofd a little bit, Issam, because he was very, very pessimistic when Van der Poel had that puncture. He was interviewed by the Belgian TV and just was all like, oh, no, he can't come back to the front. He would be lucky to still finish on the podium. It's game over. I don't like this course. There's so many stones on this mining site. He almost started comparing this stuff to BLS with how things went. He didn't have that much enthusiasm in him, but his team locked out the podium, and I guess our conclusion is that even with 2 punctures, one being directly after the second pit, Van der Poel is still so far above the rest that even that doesn't stop him. He said last week he feels he's coming into prime form for the World Championships, and boy, it looks scary, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he had to work a little bit harder. Van der Poel had to work a little bit harder for his victory here, but I think it was he showed again that he's just, as we have seen the entirety of the season, that margin compared to the rest of the competitors. And I was happy to read after the race that Viseur came out of that relatively okay, and hopefully is going to be able to race the World Championships. That would be a blow for the Belgium selection, I guess, in a way, because they already took some blows, I guess, with the missing of the likes of an Iserbeat, of Verstringen not racing as well. So that was definitely a relief in a sense, because he was laying there for quite a while. But yeah, if you look at the racing, I think that Vanderpool, if it wasn't for the punctures, it would have been another walk in the park, an easy ride, and a comfortable win. And now, he had to work for it a little bit harder, because when you get the puncture, I think especially the first one was a puncture, he had to ride quite a distance before he actually got to the pits and was able to change bikes. It definitely took some effort, but I never really felt like it was slipping out of his hands. I felt that the win was always within reach during the entirety of the race. And, Roodhoofd is the last guy you have to talk to, in a sense, if you want to cheer up your spirit or whatever. So definitely not the most hopeful person on this planet. And I think that it showed again that today, Vanderpool is just ahead. And I enjoyed that battle with Del Grosso, with Nijs. Van de Putten looked very good today. I think that was... he can definitely take arguably the most positives out of this race. I think that Del Grosso is getting used more and more to those podiums, and Nijs definitely gave a very good impression during the race, but something tells me that maybe he tried to follow Van der Poel in a sense when Del Grosso was not able to the last time, and I think that maybe it's gonna hurt you a little bit when you follow and try to follow Van der Poel, and I think maybe that costed him in the end, because it's the small things that matter, especially with the race that we got today, which was quite fast. Technical in some places, but it was also fast, and I think that then it's the small things that matter, and especially, the closer you get to the finish, it will hurt you a little bit more coming to the end. So that could have cost him for a podium, but I think that he can still look back at a race and say that there are positives, that it is a strong race. And look, everything that we are seeing around now, we are going to try and make something out of it, and others are definitely doing that already, because the World Championships are arriving in the next weekend already. So that is going to be the talk. We've seen it with the headlines. But I think that for me, Van de Putten was definitely the one I was impressed with, but also with Felipe Orts, because I think that he was, especially towards the end, that was a very, very strong effort as well.
We'll circle back to Orts in the end, because you are more than right that was a tremendous effort by Orts throughout the race. He was caught up somewhat in that chaos at the start, and from there needed to chase. But the guys at the front, they were there for almost the entirety of the race. I do agree with your assessment about Van de Putten, but first maybe let's go over the guy who we maybe expected based on the last few weeks to be the second guy behind Van der Poel, Nijs. I don't think that physically there is really anything to note. Again, I said this last week, I will repeat it. I don't really care about the results this weekend. People are preparing, people are training for that peak for the World Championship. It doesn't matter. But what does matter is for Thibaut Nijs, the technical today, because I don't think, with the exception of the last lap, he came up that weird off camber where they took a left-hand corner, so they went right up the screen, like directly towards you. It was a tricky one, especially if you were in traffic, but he struggled so much with it, and then didn't adapt to a smooth dismount lower up to limit the losses. One time he put Van der Poel literally going backwards down there, almost a sabotage move. And of course, that wasn't an intentional one, but it was telling for how much havoc that caused him, and by extension he caused others on that section. So physically he seemed alright. You could see a number of times he had something left in the tank to make a move, but also that crash earlier on in the race, that was a very silly corner to crash and was a very bad moment, because as he went down, immediately, Del Grosso and Van der Poel go away. If Van der Poel doesn't puncture there, it can be easy, the first two places are riding away there. It's easy to see that scenario unfold. Van der Poel tried to bring Del Grosso with him for a bit, then didn't make the gap too big, so he was still within sight, and the gap behind got quite big. So the result then doesn't necessarily matter, but it's more about the feeling, and Thibaut Nijs will need to be more locked in, if you will. He'll need to be more mentally present next week at the World Championships to avoid these type of mistakes, because that was today what really cost him. That crash, that off-camber, just those little hiccups all of the time, Also, one time that corner onto the bridge where he slid out and needed to put a foot down, it just wasn't flawless. And we know that he has a great technical display, and then immediately you just think back, like, what was one of the muddy races, Koppenberg, the way he was sending it down there this year was absolutely unreal. We've seen those displays. We know he has it in it, but he also admitted to that himself earlier this season. Sometimes he's mentally not present enough, and if he starts feeling things don't really go the right way, take for instance the sandpit in Merckxplas, then things quickly go the wrong way, and today was a prime example of that weakness of Thibaut Nys.
I get nightmares from that sandpit in Merckxplas, the way he was riding through that. That was really bad. But apart from maybe the lack of concentration and the mistakes that were made during the race were a little too many. But I think that he was mentally somewhat in it up until that point, probably that Van der Putte passed him, and then he kind of, you're feeling that it is slipping away the podium, and he was not able to recover from it. So if you look at pure at his form and the form of the others, I think that he arguably still second best. That's only one part of the race. You also need to be you need to display yourself in a way where you technically are able to get through the course well. And I think that, today that just lacked a little bit. And for sure that also costed him, because he got quite some opportunities that he was able, due to his form, but also the nature of the race, that he was able to get back and get another chance. And you're not always going to get that. And obviously every chance that you get because of those mishaps is going to cost you energy, and it's going to hurt you more going towards the end of the race, and will leave you with less and less. So again, I think that it was not a bad race from Nys. I just think that there was potentially probably more possible, but it was not unlocked. He was not able to reach that.
Where for Nys today, the thing he complained about afterwards was his own mental state. Doug also said a little bit about this course not being great for his back because of the bumpiness. He didn't really want to make a big point out of it afterwards, because he said that he's been dealing still with some back issues in pretty much every race. I thought it was somewhat interesting to see that Del Grosso couldn't really retain his lead when he was off the front, but at the same time it also appeared that he realized, I have a 5, maybe 6 second gap over these chasers. We have 30 minutes of racing left. It will be difficult, so at that point it's better for me to just sit in a bit and maximize the result. I mean, he said quite funnily, where like Roodhoof was saying halfway through, oh no, there's no way Van der Poel comes back, that Del Grosso even then knew he was still racing for second, and he alluded to potentially lifting off a little bit to focus on that second place, because he knew he wasn't going to get Van der Poel. So you could see, and this is something I've noticed before, like when Van der Poel went before his second puncture, Nys made an acceleration to at least attempt to follow or then break away from the rest, whereas Del Grosso doesn't really like those spikes in powers. It's quite often, but correct me if I'm wrong here, Issam, that he just kind of flatlines. He doesn't really bother too much in those accelerations and then reels in the guy that is attempted to break away, and you could see that again today, because he caught up back to Nys. And then ultimately he had a little bit more left, and we saw some great man-to-man battles between the two of those. I mean, we had that little side-by-side in the final lap, but I think it was probably 15 minutes into the race, the U-turn before the bridge. They also did a whole side-by-side section there. It was like watching Alonso going wheel-to-wheel with Schumacher back in the day for no reason. Like, there was no reason for that to be necessary 15 minutes into the race, but it was great to see.
It's just a mental warfare in a sense. I am not gonna let myself being overtaken around the outside. I'm gonna cut it back. I'm gonna try to get in front there again. I think it was a somewhat mental warfare, but I think it was beautiful to see. Was it really needed? Meh, not really. But who cares in a sense? It's just, those are just if you feel comfortable with doing that, and they stayed. I thought that both of them did a very good job in keeping it within the limits and not really pushing each other off. I think that was fair game, and I think that was definitely nice to see. But I think that Del Grosso I've said it a couple of times, that he's very smart in a sense. He can read a race very well, but I also think that he can really race his own race in a sense. He doesn't really look at if he knows that someone is just that little bit better, he can maybe think, okay, if I now let it go for a bit and try to ride my own race, because he has shown in the past that he can follow at times, but he just arguably can find his limit a little bit better. I think with Benidorm, he definitely didn't find that, and it cost him a little bit there in the race because he just really wanted to follow. He tried to follow Vanderpool, but he always tried to do that with some, I would almost say, common sense. Well, with Nice, he waited a little bit, the gap was there, and then he tried to bridge it. That is just, it's a bit too much, I would say. But that's the eagerness that Nice has, and that is his approach of racing. So I thought it was very interesting to see the different approaches of the two, and that they kind of were definitely on par in terms of their performances, and that made that racing also quite interesting, and the battles that they had. So hopefully that both guys, they have their careers that they are ending up doing this for more years, because I think that I will enjoy that for sure, and hopefully they will get some more company. Van de Putte today, as I said, was a very good ride. It's looking like both of them have a very bright future, and I can't wait to see that in the coming years. It's gonna be beautiful, to be honest.
For sure. And now you mention him, Niels van de Putte, Issam. Great ride by him, and we've seen that the form over the Christmas period has been quite good. It's good for him to also break onto the podium here. These fast racing conditions certainly have suited him well throughout the year, so he will be quite happy with it. Somebody like Mason will probably be fuming that still, there was rain forecasted for this week. It didn't come. For the Worlds there was rain, and that's slowly fading from the forecasts as well. But Van de Putte, he likes these conditions. This is a good course for him. The second part of the course is so technical, so flowy, and Van de Putte just loves that. And you could see it today. He was just surfing in the wheels, and in the end completes the podium. Really good result for him today. And yeah, if you kind of look at it, the pecking order is quite clear. Vanderpool won, then you get Del Grosso and Nice, and then behind there's a group of riders. Niels van de Putte, Felipe Orts, the first ones that come to mind. Maybe we would have said Viseur and Van Toerenhout, but Viseur after today's crash is still a question mark. And then Van Toerenhout, he's either pulling the biggest Klaas Van Toornhout move known to man, like sick last week, now he's become sick again, but nothing is really standing in the way of his Worlds participation. So either something is going on there, or he's just sick and we won't hear too much from him. But definitely a strong ride by Van de Putte today, and also by Orts, and I know you want to talk about him because that was a great ride after a bad start, and just head down, full gas, pedal to the metal, all race, 5th place.
I think that this was definitely a confirmation of Benidorm not really being a fluke or only because Nice helped him. I think that he is also just at the moment in very good form, and on the last lap I was like, he might be able to bridge it, but it was going to be a difficult task. And you also know when they are up front, they're really going to race, because Nice was, that beginning of that last lap was maybe thinking, okay, I have to hold back a little bit because I will need that for the final part of the last lap. And that also maybe helped a little bit, but I think that Orts was just racing overall very, very well. And I don't really know if I can really say that I was surprised, but I think that I was impressed. Honestly, I was really impressed by the way he was racing today. And as you said, he had to come from far, but he was able to get through the field, and he can look back at I think a phenomenal ride, especially if you look at his season so far. I think that with Benidorm and now this is definitely this was maybe the Felipe that I was hoping to see. This was the Orts that I was hoping to see more this season. I don't think that we have seen it as much as I would have liked. But I'm enjoying these races for sure, and I'm happy for him that he was able to pull it off again. Very, very, very strong result, and he can also take definitely the positives from this race for sure. He will be disappointed in a sense because he might potentially have been able to, if he had a good start and was more up front. Who knows? Maybe he was able to race with the group up front, and that then you don't know how the racing will go. But I definitely think that without that, the what ifs, it was still a very, very strong effort.
Let's look at the entire top 10 then, because I fully agree. Great ride by Orts. The only concern potentially is he peaking a little bit too early? How will he be at the World Championships next week? I hope in great form. He could do quite good in Hulst, although the course is a bit less technical than in previous years. But Vanderpool 1, Del Grosso 2, Van der Putten 3, Nijs 4, Orts 5, Kuiper 6, Kuhn 7, Van der Bos 8, Hendricks 9, and Mason 10. I think there's a couple of riders here. Like what I said earlier, it's about the feeling for many of these riders. And for Gerben Kuipers, this must be a great feeling. This is the best he's done in a race in years. And we can make some remarks here that some riders had a lot of stuff happening to them and things going wrong in the start, a crash here or there. But the reality is also that you alluded to the Belgian selection being quite thin. The reality is also that the top field of the men feels quite thin. Those absences on the Belgian side. We have, of course, on the men's side also some Dutch riders with their problems. Nieuwhuis DNF after 3 punctures. Also still not really the same after the knee injury. Ronnaar DNF after being in the start crash, but also not having a good season at all. Van der Haar has been very on and off. Like, that opens possibilities for other riders. Last week that was Martin Groslamberg riding into the top 10, and today we saw Gerben Kuipers really seize the day with his best ride in years. I hope that whatever was going on with him, that they managed to find it, and that next year he can finally deliver a full, clean season. The raw talent is in him there, and this is a much needed up for him. He's on the final spot for Belgium for the world selection, so that will be good. And I mean, similarly, we can say Kevin Kuhn, Cameron Mason, for them also a up after a phase, and for them it's more a phase in the season that wasn't that great, and for Kuipers it's just confirmation of an upwards trajectory started like somewhere at the beginning of this season.
We were questioning that transfer in a sense from Paul Sousa because of his poor performances, and to be honest, it's nice to see that he has been able to get better. It's also quite positive for Paul Sousa because, you know, it's not only the Belgium selection that is quite thin, they also not really have it at the moment on the elite side, on the men's side. So, you know, Kuipers would be a great addition if he would be, you know, get a little bit better. And I think he has that in him. He just has to continue, and he will definitely be someone that will be looking at that World Championships and think about a potential top 10. I think that is definitely within his possibilities, and I don't think that a top 5 is possible, but a top 10 definitely should be his objective, because I think that is that could be possible. But Hulst is a difficult course as well, so that will be interesting. Also, how the circumstances will be and how his day will be as well. So, but positives definitely for Kuipers as well.
I'm quite excited because, yeah, I did mock that transfer to Paul Sousa a little bit after those performances, but that was more out of Paul Sousa's spite than Gerben Kuipers' spite. I mean, I was still quite high on him at the start of the season, and it's nice to see, like, his story. I mean, I'm personally a fan of that. Just the element of keep believing in yourself and fighting that uphill battle, working a job in a factory, continuing to train in the dark after your work. Wake up at 5, start in the factory shift at 6, finish at 2 or 3, then come home, train for 2.5 hours. Really hard work and dedication is what got him to this level, and it's quite nice to see that in an era where so much more pressure is coming on young riders to perform. Juniors, you need to be there to be picked up by the development teams. It's just nice to sometimes see that there are still riders who develop at their own pace and their own tempo and then still succeed. And it would be great that the Gerben Kuipers we saw in Hogerheide by now 3 years ago at the World Championships, I believe finishing 6th there, racing for Proximus, arranging through a mutual connection the old bikes of Zdenek Stibar, because the bikes he had were super old. Like, that's just great if we could see that rider back. And I think I would also like to say Cameron Mason, really good race. He could have been up there for potentially a top 5 around Felipe Orts, I think, if it wasn't for that puncture early on. I don't think he would have been able to really keep up that pace that he dropped in the opening lap. But again, it's about the feeling. He has something positive to take from this. And if you look at how the last couple of World Cups have been going for him, that is much needed. He was 35th in Benidorm. He was at Christmas also not doing too great. 20th in Dendermonde, 8th in Loenhout, 22nd in Diegem, 13th in Baal. Then to kind of turn this around, you need something to hold on to, is my main takeaway from this weekend. And he got just that with this result today. For Van der Haar, it's a question mark. He was very good at the Dutch Championships. He had a couple of good performances. Today, perhaps he had a few punctures out of the eyes of the camera, but not really a great day for him, but we'll see where it brings him. He's really prepping hard for those World Championships, so ultimately it's a one-day race and anything can happen next week. And with that, all my cliches have been burned through, so we should go and talk about the women's race, because there we also had quite an entertaining battle for the win. In the first lap, it was who else than Amandine Foucounet setting the pace. Buck Pietersen was up there, Blanca Vash was there, Sean Alvarado, Sara Casasola, but notably not present at the front was Lucinda Brandt. She was around 12th position. She missed her start and in the first lap needed to work her way through the field. At the front of the race, Pietersen, Foucounet took turns. Brandt tried to bridge across to that leading group, but then crashed in the second lap just before the sandpit. From there it went from bad to worse for the favorite. Brandt kept making technical mistakes, kind of lost the faith after that crash, because before she could still see the group in front of her. That was Alvarado, Casasola, Vash. She saw them and knew, okay, there is maybe some potential for me to come across there, fight for the podium, maybe bridge to the leaders. But after that crash, it just was game over. She was in a group for 5th, didn't really care anymore in the last lap and would finish 10th. What did we have at the front of the race? Buck Pietersen and Amandine Foucounet. Pietersen took in the middle part of the race the initiative, leading, mainly putting Foucounet under pressure in the second part of the course. Foucounet came back, then there was a little gap, and then just as you kind of thought, okay, now Pietersen is going to pull this race her direction, she made a little mistake on the off-camber, lost 2 seconds. Foucounet, with new belief, put down the power, closed the gap. Foucounet seemed to have found her second breath. She made a very strong impression until she punctured, and from there it was the game over. That was the final blow for Foucounet, because she got set back to 4th, made a big push, came from 4th to 2nd, made a attempt to close the gap to Pietersen in the final lap, but it never got closer than 6, maybe 5 seconds. Pietersen then went on to take the win. Foucounet needed to outsprint Alvarado, but she didn't, so Alvarado clinched 2nd in the end, with Foucounet in 3rd after what was a great ride. Issam, here we come into the point where I think it's the classic overreaction for the World Championships. What do we see today? Lucinda Brandt doesn't have a good day at all. After 2 years and 3 days, she misses the podium in a cyclocross race. Unreal streak of, I believe, 63 podium places from the top of my head. Unreal. But it can happen. You can have a bad day. Brandt said she didn't feel fresh. And then look at the technicalities today. The technical awareness that Nijs lacked was also lacking for Brandt. She made a lot of mistakes, not just on that off-camber, which was a diagonal dismount. Also on other sections, it was not smooth at all today. It was just not good enough today. But what did we see for the rest? A continuation of what we saw this season. Pietersen and Alvarado coming into form, a very strong Foucounet, Casasola returning from a pretty bad illness over Christmas. This year apparently coming back stronger than last year. Still lacking a little bit, but again, putting her nose in that group of outsiders. And if we talk about the pecking order at the men, I think you're in a similar situation on the women's. Brandt is probably going to start as the top favorite, but much closer behind her are Pietersen and Alvarado. And then there's this other group that could really contend for the podiums. Foucounet, Casasola, Zemanova, potentially Blanca Vash. It was quite a nice race with a lot of different nationalities in those front places as well. I think I wouldn't overreact to this performance by Brandt is my takeaway though.
I should. I guess it's normal in a sense because as we've stated, it's just only a week before the World Championships are there, and it's within the nature of this period that people are going to try and create a narrative and try to look too much into certain results and not take into consideration the fact that Brandt for this World Cup, it was already done and dusted. She was the leader. She was not going to lose that position, and that obviously is going to have a different mindset going into this race. And of course, with all the training that she has done and knowing that the main objective for this season is the World Championship, you just know that, these things are possible. We have seen it so many times before. So it's not a new phenomenon that we see in cyclocross. In a sense, I can understand that people are trying to create a narrative or find something spectacular in the result. And in a sense, for sure, you could see that, Peterson was having a good day. But everything has to be put in some context, I guess. And although I was impressed with both Peterson and Alvarado, it's just very difficult to say that this will be enough come Hulst. And that is how we have to look at it. Is this going to be enough? That is the question that we have to ask going into Hulst, and not the question if Brandt is going to be ready, because obviously there are doubts, but I think that Brandt will be able to be at her best there in Hulst, and then it's going to be the question: are Peterson and Alvarado going to be good enough? And it was a shame to see that Foucounet had that puncture and kind of lost the connection there with Peterson, because I think that she was having a very, very, very strong day as well. Hopefully she can carry that on also next weekend. That would be great to see. And as you said, I think that the Dutch kind of block that we had, the very strong group with quite some riders, it's not there anymore in a sense as big as it was. And that is, I guess, in a way also very good to see that we have multiple nationalities. It's mixed up due to different circumstances in a way, but nevertheless, it's being mixed up. And I think that is definitely a positive sign on the women's side, and I hope that is something that we will see for many years to come, because it's good for the sport in a sense. So if I look at the racing itself, I think that Alvarado, the beginning of the race may have influenced how difficult it was for her, or how difficult she made it for herself, and then you obviously have to try and get back into the race, which she did quite strongly. And I think then in the end, she was there with Foucounet, and then you kind of have that feeling that Alvarado normally will finish that off, and she did. So I think that was also very deserving second place, and for Foucounet it was also a very, very strong effort, in my opinion.
With the risk, and I say risk because I'm not wearing these sunglasses like Macron was in Davos, like is predictable for sure. Like something unpredictable happening here is predictable for sure.
For sure.
How many times has this happened this summer? I mean, I think back to 2013 when the final World Cup was in Hoogheide and it was snowy, and we got the surprise results there. It was a win for Martin Bina, and there was some snow forecast for Louisville, and it was also, is Bina the top favorite? The Belgians clapped. What's going to happen? Are we in trouble? Klaas van Tornhout didn't even race after the Belgian Championships until the Worlds that year. He didn't show up, and he nearly became world title, but he cut a corner too short. Sven Nys was fourth the week before, and people were thinking, is he cooked? Is it over for the 37-year-old? He wasn't good last year in Kokzijde. And in the end, nearly Bart Wellens even took a podium. And Bart Wellens the weekend before was 27th in Hoogheide. Like, so much can happen. It's a one-day race, and again, like I said before, you need something to hold on to. I think back to Hoogheide 2017, the Telenet 1-2-3, Vanderpool finishing 26th the week before the World Championships. In the end, Vanderpool was good. I want to bring into recollection last year's race here in Maasmechelen. Where was Fem van Empel after a great season? She was in the trenches. She didn't have a good day. She had an even worse day, so to speak, in Hoogheide. But at the World Championships, who was the one celebrating? It was again Fem van Empel. So a lot can happen, and it's about finding something. So then for me, what does this mean? What did we see today? Well, I think that we just see a further continuation. We know Lucinda Brandt is very good. We know the form that she had in December was tremendous, but we also know that that's pretty much her ceiling. Not much was going to come on top of that form. We knew that Alvarado and Peterson, due to their seasonal approach, did have the opportunity to improve. And that much is what they have been doing. They've been improving, and I think that today, again, we saw a slightly stronger Alvarado and Peterson. What I liked about Peterson today was that she was relatively smooth. There were a few mistakes, but overall she managed to avoid a really big mistake. So to bring it down to the race here, Issam, what made the difference? Well, first of all, I want to question the comment Alvarado made after the race. Could Alvarado have bridged the gap to Peterson? I think that's very difficult. Peterson was strong today. She made a strong impression. It's a good course for her. And in that phase when she was with Foucounet, it was Peterson in the second part of the course consistently leading. And because it's feature, 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 feature. U-turn, bridge, stairs, off-camber, hill, corner, corner, sandpit, another corner, another hill. It just flows it out. And if you're able, like Peterson, to just carry like that little bit more speed through every single corner than Foucounet, then that gap strings out. And Foucounet needs to pace in the first part of the lap to come back. And at some point that kind of stopped. And Peterson broke away until she then made a small mistake. But she managed to avoid those big mistakes like we saw at the national championships that just cost her the entire race. And today it clicked and she got that win. And that's, I think, what made the difference today. However, I will say that without that puncture, it's probably not a guarantee that she wins, because Foucounet in the second half of the race really made a strong impression. I thought, okay, she's definitely fading, but she repacked herself so strongly with such strong efforts after that puncture that I almost dare question that, well, when she got that, like, handed to her, that opportunity to be on the wheel of Peterson, maybe it could have been her day to take the first win of her career in the World Cup.
In a way, it's just a question that pops up right now. What if we had today a Brandt that we have seen earlier this season? You know, a very good Brandt. Was the level of today going to be enough to battle, in your opinion? It's hypothetical and it's it's hard to judge. But what do you think? What do you say?
To battle, yes, because it's such a sport of moments. Like, she didn't have a good start. That's not something that we're not used to of Brandt.
Mm-hmm.
She, in the second lap, got underway and was ready to bridge to a meaningful group, one which would put her in the potential mix for the podium, and then probably by the end also for the win. But would she have won? Maybe not. Brandt said it herself, it's not a course that really suits her. So I think the timing of that crash really was unfortunate, and then she already doesn't like the course. She already had some issues in the pre-ride, and then just mentally she was like, oh, whatever, I don't really want to waste myself here in a super long chase. I need to stay fresh. Another race tomorrow, World Championships next week. Like, that's what we've seen all season, right? Brandt really wants to become world champion, and I think that also played a role here in the final lap. Like, if she finished 5th, the headlines are very different than if she finishes 10th, and realistically, it's the same group of riders she was with.
I'm somewhere having the similar answer in a sense, or that's at least what I hypothetically think, because today, especially if you look, the course is quite tricky, and she had some difficulties with that. It's the question if the mindset had anything to do with that as well, because maybe, there is that, it just creeps in a sense that you're like, Sven Nys was talking during the broadcast as well that Brandt was already somewhat complaining about the legs not really feeling well before the race. So mentally you're going into a race already and you're like, I don't feel great. I don't know if this is going to be it, and I will make the best out of it, but it doesn't really matter anyways. Next week matters more and matters the most. Those are things that make it obviously also difficult, because was she in the mindset of a world championship? Would she have crashed? Who knows? Would she have struggled as much as she struggled today? Who knows? It's a lot of what ifs, but it was just, I kind of popped up because I tried to put this race in a perspective, and I'm looking at the performance of Peterson, looking at the performance of Alvarado and Foucounet as well. Was this enough to battle with Brandt? And I think that it was going to be enough to battle, but I still think that Brandt normally would have had the edge, and that is how I'm thinking about Hulst as well. But I'm wandering in a very dangerous path, because it is in a very hypothetical state that I'm talking about right now, and you just don't know what is going to happen on the World Championships on the day itself when it matters the most. A lot of things can happen. A crash could end the race in a heartbeat. So obviously you hope that that's not going to happen, but those are just the scenarios that could potentially happen, of course.
And the World Championships in Hulst are, of course, a totally different course. There is technical aspect to it, but it's in the first part of the lap rather than the second half of the lap. The second half of the lap in Hulst, I can already share, is very power prone. Like, it's a lot more straightaways. It has the potential to have a lot of muddy sections as well along the water. There's a whole extra section along the water in front of the VIP tent, another field that could easily become quite a slug. You need to put the power down really heavy. There is rain forecasted, and even if it isn't, it's a real section where you can put the power down. So the course in nature has changed quite a lot from the World Cup that was there last year. So, again, we are over-analyzing rather than overreacting. But I do think that what we saw today was just a continuation of what we have seen. Brandt has been strong, but is getting chased by a pack of wolves. Peters and Alvarado getting stronger every week, and Foucounet now also delivering another strong performance. For Foucounet, my question is this just it? Like, is there a peak next week, or is this it? And if this is it, what does it bring today? But today was very good on a course that still, considering all the improvements she's made this year, Foucounet is still not great. Like, you could see technically there were a number of corners where Peterson was just quicker through it. Alvarado able to put her under pressure. Tactically in the final lap, she got done quite dirty by Alvarado quite easily. And that's something that Foucounet can still learn. She's 25. This is her first year on Pauwelsauze. Like, that will really help her. Like, Foucounet can become really, really dangerous if she's able to take those opportunities if Pauwelsauze, which I assume they do, and I've heard positive things about that they plan to give her all the technical assistance that she needs. Like, there's a lot of progression in her, and then she can become really, really dangerous, which she already is, but then even more dangerous. So, I liked what I saw from Foucounet. Again, I come down to what can you take from it. Peterson can take her first World Cup win of the season from it. Alvarado can take a consistent day in which she can tell herself that she was able to win if she didn't want to leave it to her teammate. Foucounet can take a great ride after a puncture. Casasola can take a great performance after being sick for weeks from it. Brandt, she can't really take anything from it, but for Brandt that shouldn't matter based on the season she's had. Let me then ask you a question, Issam. Do you believe that Alvarado could have won this race today?
No. I think Peterson was that little bit better. Peterson was strong today, so I lean more towards saying that was not really a huge chance for that to happen, in my opinion.
And then what did you think of Casasola? She was quite strong today, and just like for Foucounet, this is not a great course for Casasola, although it is the one where she really broke through on the big stage 3.5 years ago.
That was very positive. And overall, that she was able to be around there again at the front, in a sense, racing with the very best. I think that was also a positive from her. And it's the timing is also okay with the World Championships coming up. So I think that must be somewhat a relief that it is still... that she still has that in her, in a sense, because it's not something that we didn't see coming from her, in a sense, these type of results. But it's just with the circumstances and all that, and it was a tough time. If you consider all the circumstances, the health issues, to be then here, being the national champion, and then also today racing very well. So I think that was positive, and is, as you said, is going to be an outsider for definitely for a top 5, but maybe potentially also for a podium. So that is it is getting more and more interesting. That is always how it's going to be. That's the narrative going towards the World Championships. But if you look purely at the race of Casasola, I think that, considering all the circumstances, and there were quite a few, and there were also quite some things that worked against her, in a sense, I think that it was a very, very solid race.
Let's look at the entire top 10 then. Peterson, Alvarado, Foucounet, Casasola, your top 4. Zemanova 5th ahead of Blanca Vash. Ribeirol 7th ahead of Zoe Backstedt. Shirin van Anrooy 9th and Lucinda Brandt in 10th. Just briefly here to conclude this episode, Issam, again a strong performance by Zemanova. She's really been on a roll recently, getting top result after top result. Just pretty much since the start of the Christmas period. It's really much better than at the European Championships. 7th Namur, 5th in Antwerp, 9th in Kokzijde, 8th in Dendermonde, 8th in Zonhoven, 5th in Benidorm, and now 5th in Maasmechelen. Is really, really tremendous streak of World Cup results for her. In between, she also got 2nd in Loenhout and 5th in Mol, which is just impressive if you look where she came from. Not just the start of this season, but also the long COVID last year. So this is another continuation of that. But I think for Vash, there's also some positive in this. Yes, she was better here last year. She won. Quite hard to beat that, but it was okay. Like, she was up there in the beginning, and then she faded, but last week she couldn't stop the bleeding. It was just fade, 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 and then finish. Now it was, okay, I can't keep this pace up. I'm not blowing myself up. I fade a little bit, but I repack myself and I stick with Zemanova until the end. Can't quite beat her yet. It's a good result. I'm curious to see Vash at the World Championships. She's had tremendous form peaks for big goals before. Think about the Road Olympics where she was 4th. Mountain Bike Olympics in Tokyo where she was, I think, also 4th. Like, good results all around for Vash at some of her big peaks. I'm curious what it can bring next week. I mean, the last year it seemed like she peaked a little bit too early. Can she get it right this year? Who knows? But I thought today in that sense was quite positive.
That is going to be interesting to follow, to see if that is going to be better, and come Hulst will be enough for a solid result. But I definitely agree with you that, if you compare it to the race in Benidorm, that was quite the fade. That was not what you want to see in a race as well, because even if you're struggling, you kind of still want to fight that struggle in a sense, and still try to make the best out of it, which she 100% tried, but it was just not in her to make it as bad as it was. And I think today, as you said, that narrative was already on the Belgian broadcast, especially, that narrative was immediately drawn that it was, again, same things happening, and she was not able to stop the bleeding in a sense, and it was not their best season overall, and some of that is obviously true. But as you said, I think that she managed to hold her own quite well. Hopefully come Hulst, as you said, that at times she can find something at a championship that in other races were not there, and then she's on the up and can find a very good result. So hopefully she can find that as well, and that in a sense it's making the women elite category quite interesting, coming towards that final stretch, coming to Hulst, the World Championships. I think it is developing in a sense, and I was worried, when we were somewhere the last week of December in a sense, and the first week of January, it was like, oh, this is gonna be a tough one maybe, but things are developing, things are improving, and we are now in the last weekend talking about the challengers, we're talking about the outsiders, and the story is still continuing in a sense, and that is how it goes, and that is the great thing that I love about this sport, is just that those things are just happening and continuing, and riders that you didn't really consider as an outsider are now considered as one, and Vash is definitely one that has been growing into this season with some dips here and there for sure. Hasn't been the greatest of seasons for Vash, but what would that do if she was able to really have a good result at the World Championships? That would, make this cyclocross campaign just a little bit better. So that's going to be interesting as well.
Hey, and then Zoe Backstedt, what do you think of her race today? 8th, not necessarily a course that suits her. And she's also racing the elite category next week. What do you think of that?
Her racing with the elite category, I think that was a good move. Because if you have won it already once, I think at that point you should already try and consider racing with the elites. In my opinion, she didn't, which in a sense I could understand it as well. I had enough. I could understand it. I for myself at least, I could understand it. And this World Championships, the way she entered this season and the results so far, I don't think there is much to gain for her racing the under 23 category. And to be very honest, we were already talking about it in Benidorm. It wasn't going to be the easy walkover victory in a sense. At least we were seeing the dangers of Égérie. So I think that it was, it's maybe in a sense it's damage limitation, but on the other hand, it's also, I think, a very good move. You will experience this elite championships in a way, which also brings a different element, despite the fact, obviously, that they already, as an under 23, you're racing with the elites in almost all the races, actually. So in a way, it brings some new things, and that will be interesting for her. And maybe she can get a good result out of that as well, because it was today, as you said, it was not a bad race. It was actually on a course that it's not the best circumstances for Bakstedt, but it was not a bad one, and it looked positive. So who knows? Maybe that for the World Championship that could be a potential top 10 as well. We have to wait and see. But I think that I was quite happy to see that she was racing with the elites, because and I have said it with Van Anrooy as well when the World Championships was at Hogerheide, that when you have won the World Championships once in the under 23 category, it's time to move on. I think they have to make that mandatory, to be honest, the UCI. In a way, it's obviously with development, it's a tricky thing, because if you win it as a first year under 23, especially on the men's side, you still kind of maybe want to have that second year in development and do the World Cup races in the under 23 category. So it is a tricky thing, but I think that it is something that maybe has to be considered in a sense. But anyways, that was not the question that you asked me. If we have to talk about Bakstedt itself, I think that there is potential for a top 10 for sure. She will be an outsider, and today looked not bad at all. It was actually quite a decent result from her as well, and she's a bit on the up as well. The positives are there.
Let's see what tomorrow brings. Much better course for her. Very fast, power heavy, not too much elevation. Could be a good day for her. And yeah, top 10 should be quite easy. Like, that should be the minimum. But a top 5, I think, on a good day is what she can aim for after this season. Not much to gain in the under 23 category, but a lot to lose there. So I get the decision, and it will open up some new perspective there for some other riders. So yeah, I think that's it for the rest. Yeah, we've covered plenty on Van Alphen, Bentveld, Van der Heijden. Hard to see that being turned around at this point of the season, but we'll be back tomorrow, Issam. Thank you so much.
Alvarado is not starting, but I say that
correct,
because I picked it up.
Correct.
Yeah. So Alvarado is not starting, but it is going to be interesting again. Hogerheide also with the junior category starting. They have their final round there, and a lot of conclusions will be drawn from that race, I guess. That will come Hulst will be would look very inconclusive and very wrong in a sense. So that will be interesting to read, and I won't be there, but I will definitely try to pick up the stories, because you will be there, and hopefully you will share them with us in tomorrow's episode.
As always, I will. Tomorrow we have 5 races on the program, juniors, under 23, and then the elite races, so should be another good day. Long episode today, plenty to discuss. Like I said somewhere, we are definitely over-analyzing, but I like to tangle and build towards that World Championship. It's the biggest race of the year, and I think it deserves storytelling, and it deserves that build-up that many other sports have, and many other outlets also give to the men elite race. I just like to have that build-up, and yes, everything means something for that. Perhaps we overvalue it compared to the rest of the season at Cyclocross Social a little bit, but again, we just like to build that narrative and really give you the feeling that these results mean something for something, because certainly for the overall of the World Cup they don't. Brandt already won it last week in Benidorm, so irrelevant that we didn't even mention it in that podcast. And then here now Vanderpool needs either nice not to win, or he needs a placement above 24th or something to secure the overall, so that's also in the bag for him. Proud that we didn't go into the rants about the Thomas van der Spiegel interviews. I will end on a positive note, and that is the timing graphics, which we've encouraged and said that should be implemented with time gaps, were implemented in today's race. It was nice. Can it be better? Absolutely. Visually, the red numbers were hard to read, but hey, it's an attempt, so we're going to end it on that. Thanks everyone for listening. Catch you guys soon. Goodbye.